A researcher once calculated that the average American household spends over $200 a month on subscriptions, and that when surveyed, those same households estimate they're spending about $80. The gap between what people think they pay and what they actually pay is $120 a month. Invisible, automatic, and that gap alone, invested over 10 years, becomes roughly $20,000. That's the theme of this entire video. The expenses that don't feel like expenses. The ones that compound in silence. When I first started building this list for the channel, I expected 4 or 5 worth talking about. I found more. I'm Warren, and this list started as a footnote in the car trap video. It became its own episode because the numbers wouldn't let me look away. Yesterday we broke down the car payment, the single most destructive recurring expense in most budgets. Today we go smaller. 7 expenses that feel like nothing individually, but add up to something enormous over a decade. And running through all of them is one person's story. A graphic designer in Portland named Jess, 26, earning about $52,000, who audited her own budget on a Tuesday night and found over $500 a month that was leaving her account for things she either didn't use or didn't need. But before we get to the list, here's the thing about Jess that makes her story worth telling. She almost didn't do the audit. She'd watched the car trap video, thought about running her numbers, and then closed her laptop and watched something on Netflix instead. It took 3 more days, Friday night, alone on the couch, bored, before she actually opened her Chase bank statement. She said the reason she nearly skipped it was simple. She assumed there was nothing to find. She thought she was careful with money. That assumption, that careful people don't have leaks, is exactly why the leaks survive. Leak 1. Subscription stacking. Jess pulled up 3 months of bank statements and highlighted every recurring charge. The count? 14 active subscriptions. Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, Adobe Creative Cloud, iCloud Storage, a meditation app, a workout app she hadn't opened in 5 months, 2 news sites, a meal planning service, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, and a VPN she'd forgotten she had. Total, just under $210 a month. She'd estimated about 90. The fix took 10 minutes, she canceled 6. Monthly savings, about $85. Over 10 years invested at 7%, roughly $14,500. Not from earning more, from stopping payments for things she wasn't using. Leak 2, and this one lands differently because most people don't think of it as a recurring expense. The phone upgrade cycle. Think about the phone in the pocket right now. If it's less than 2 years old and on a payment plan, there's an active subscription running for a device that works perfectly today and will work perfectly for another 2 years. The carriers know this. That's why the upgrade notification arrives the moment the current plan ends, a zero-down offer that the brain reads as free. It isn't free, it's another 24 months of payments, and the old phone that still works goes in a drawer. Jess had been upgrading her iPhone every 2 years since college. The line item buried in her AT&T bill, $47 a month for the device alone, separate from the plan itself. A phone kept for 4 years instead of 2, maybe with a new battery from a third-party repair shop for $40, saves about $600 a year. Over a decade invested, roughly $8,500. For keeping the same phone in a case that costs $12, leak 3. Convenience delivery fees. And here's where Jess's audit turned into something she didn't expect. She searched the word Uber in her bank statement. The list scrolled. And scrolled. When she totaled it, just the last 60 days, the number was $960. 2 months of DoorDash and Uber Eats, nearly $1,000. She said she sat back on the couch, the laptop warm on her legs, and just looked at it. Because each order had been $12, $15, $18 in her head. The service fee, the delivery fee, the tip, each one turned a $15 burrito into a $35 delivery. The markup on delivered food averages 30 to 40% above menu price once everything is factored in. She could see the individual orders, a Chipotle bowl here, a Thai place there. A late-night pizza that felt like a treat and cost $41 by the time it arrived. None of them felt like a financial decision at the moment of ordering. All of them were. Jess cut delivery to once a week and started batch cooking on Sundays, rice, chicken, roasted vegetables from Costco, enough for 4 or 5 meals. Monthly savings over $300. That single change, compounded over 10 years, is worth more than $40,000. And the food, she said, is actually better because she picks the ingredients instead of trusting whatever DoorDash sends. Here's where the list shifts from choices to traps. The next two aren't lifestyle expenses, they're structural charges designed to be invisible. Leak 4 is built around a question, and it's one worth asking yourself. Do you know what you paid for the last warranty someone offered you? Just didn't. It turned out she'd bought an extended warranty on her MacBook from Best Buy, $150, and an AppleCare plan on her phone, $200 a year. Combined, over $300 annually. The industry profit margin on extended warranties runs above 50%. For every dollar spent, less than half comes back as a claim. The fix? Decline every extended warranty by default. Use a credit card that includes purchase protection, Chase Sapphire, Amex, several others do this automatically, and self-insure small items. If a repair costs less than a few hundred, the warranty wasn't worth the premium. Leak 5, bank fees. And this is the one that made Jess angry. Not sad, not resigned, but angry. She had a Wells Fargo checking account she'd opened in college. Monthly maintenance fee, $12 a month. She'd been paying it for 4 years. That's $576 in fees for the privilege of having a bank account. On top of that, 2 overdraft charges in the past year, $35 each. Total annual cost of her bank account, roughly $214. She opened an Ally account on her phone during the audit, took about 15 minutes, and initiated the transfer that night. Annual savings over $200. And here's the part that made her angry. The fees hadn't been hiding. They were on every statement. She just never looked, because the statements went to an email folder she hadn't opened since she set up the account. And this needs to be said clearly, because it applies to every leak on this list. These charges aren't mistakes, they're design. The subscription model exists because companies know most people won't cancel. The industry term for it is involuntary churn, and the entire pricing structure depends on the percentage of customers who pay without using. The phone upgrade push comes with a zero-down hook because the carrier knows it locks in another 2 years of guaranteed revenue. The delivery markup lives inside a UI that shows the food price in large text and the fees in small text below the fold. The warranty is offered at the register after the buying decision is already made, when resistance is lowest and the number gets absorbed into the total. And the bank fee sits in a statement that most people auto-archive without opening. Every one of these is optimized for the provider. Not one is optimized for the customer. That's not a conspiracy. It's a business model, and the only defense against it is an audit, a deliberate manual review that the system is specifically designed to discourage. Leak 6, insurance on a car that's no longer worth covering. If a vehicle's value has dropped below about $5,000 and most cars over 8 years old are in this range, full coverage insurance no longer makes mathematical sense. Liability only cuts the premium roughly in half. The difference can run $400 to $600 a year. Most people never switch because nobody calls to tell them their car isn't worth the coverage. It's the default, and defaults, as we've talked about on this channel since video 1, almost never get changed unless someone changes them on purpose. That $400 a year compounded over a decade, about $5,500. Leak 7, the unused gym membership. This one gets a different treatment. Not because the math is dramatic, but because it's the clearest example of how autopilot works against you. The average gym member goes fewer than twice a month. At $50 a month, that's effectively paying $25 per visit for a treadmill. Jess had a membership at a studio gym, $65 a month. She'd gone 3 times in the last 2 months. She didn't cancel it during the audit, she almost skipped it. She said she felt like canceling meant admitting she wasn't going to go, and that felt like giving up. She canceled it 4 days later after calculating that the $65 a month invested for 10 years was over $11,000. She replaced it with a Planet Fitness membership at $10 a month and a set of resistance bands. Same workouts. $55 a month back in the gap. Now, the total. Jess added up everything she changed that Tuesday night and the following week. Subscriptions, $85. Phone, $47. Delivery, over $300. Warranties, about $25 a month amortized. Bank fees, roughly $18. Insurance adjustment, $40. Gym, $55. Total monthly savings, approximately $570. She didn't earn a dollar more. She didn't get promoted. She didn't start a side project. She found $570 a month that was already leaving, automatically, silently, for things that were returning almost nothing. The moment she saw the total, the architecture from video 1 clicked. The protocol says, find the gap, then automate it. This video just widened her gap by $570 without touching her income. $570 a month, invested at 7% for 10 years becomes roughly $98,000. She stared at that number the same way she'd stared at the Uber Eats total 3 hours earlier. $98,000. From a Tuesday night audit and a Friday she almost skipped. That's the gap between the person who opens the bank statement and the person who closes the laptop and puts on Netflix. Here's the 15-minute version. Tonight, not next week, pull up your last bank statement. Highlight every recurring charge for each one. Did you use this in the last 30 days? If no, cancel it. Don't save it for later? Cancel it now. Then, is there a cheaper version that does the same thing? If yes, switch. The whole process takes about 15 minutes, and it's the highest paying 15 minutes of work most people will ever do. The compound value is somewhere between $20,000 and $100,000 over the next decade, depending on what surfaces. If you don't do this audit in the next week, every leak keeps running. Quietly, monthly, on autopilot. And in 10 years, the gap between the person who plugged them and the person who didn't is a number that would have changed everything. A retirement account, a down payment, the freedom to say no to a job that doesn't feel right. That's what invisible expenses steal. Not money. Options. And autopilot, unlike architecture, works against you. Tomorrow, the system that decides how much every dollar of debt costs before anyone even applies. The credit scoring system. It isn't transparent, it isn't fair, and it isn't built for the borrower, but it can be decoded. And once the rules are visible, they stop being weapons and start being tools.